The Miracle at Rich, an eyewitness sports exclusive, is being brought to you by Fleet Bank. We're here to make a difference. Video Factory, Buffalo's hometown video chain, saluting the Bills. The new Dodge. See your nearby Team Dodge dealer. And by Crystal Pepsi, now at your favorite store.
Good evening, I'm John Murphy, and welcome to The Miracle at Rich. The Pro Football History book is filled with stories of legendary games. Games like the 1958 NFL Championship, Alan Amici rumbling into the end zone in overtime to win it for the Colts. The 1981 San Diego-Miami playoff game, with the Chargers scoring a three-point win in overtime. And the Bills have played their share of classics, the 64 and 65 AFL championships, the 51-3 annihilation of the Raiders in the AFC title game, even Super Bowl 25, lost on a last-minute field goal try. Well, now there's a new entry in the book of the NFL's greatest games, and it comes under the heading of comebacks. And ironically, one of the most spectacular games in NFL history was blacked out on local television. So if you were not near a satellite dish, being a member of the 12th man was the only way you saw this game. It was a mild January day as the Bills and Oilers took the field, neither team knowing that this day would go down in history. And with a flip of a coin, the stage was set. The Miracle at Rich was about to begin. Houston wins the toss, electing to receive, and with a 60-yard kickoff from Steve Christie, the game was underway.
Video Factory presents
Weatherfax says heavy snow this morning.
I gotta get to the station.
Plus blow.
Morning man Bill Lacey is learning firsthand about weather facts from 930 WBEN.
I don't believe this.
With the latest traffic conditions,
The Skyway is closed in both directions.
official school and business closings,
Rescue dog closed for business today.
You too? I don't believe this.
and Buffalo's exclusive weather facts forecast.
There's even a chance of lightning, believe it or not.
No. Yes.
News 930 WBEN.
Next, Bill Lacey on the Good Morning Show.
Believe it.
The beginning of the Bills-Oilers wildcard game was not very wild. It was methodical as far as the Oilers were concerned. And the Bills were playing without Pro Bowlers like Jim Kelly and Cornelius Bennett. They were on the sidelines with injuries. So Houston's confidence was running high. The Oilers began moving downfield with the well-executed drive highlighted by Warren Moon's surgical passing strikes.
Warren Moon's passes cut through the chilly air like a laser. On the Oilers' first drive, he hit this 32-yard completion to Haywood Jeffries. The famous Buffalo crowd noise did not seem to be a factor on the first drive. The Oilers were able to audible, pick up first down. Operating out of the run-and-shoot format, Houston found it better to run than shoot, especially with Lorenzo White escaping Buffalo defenders. It took 9 minutes. It went 80 yards. It was Houston 7, Buffalo nothing in the first quarter. Warren Moon played a first half that quarterbacks dream about, making the right call at the right time, the perfect pass at the best possible moment. Buffalo's first possession of the game started with this kickoff return for Kenneth Davis. He finds a seam on the outside and goes 33 yards. As it turned out, it was only the beginning for Thurman Thomas' understudy. Jim Kelly's backup, Frank Reich, in his first playoff start. 7th start overall in his National Football League career. Armed with the firm grasp of the offense and with his unshakable faith, Frank Reich was able to move his team downfield. When the drive stalled at Houston's 18-yard line, the Bills settled for a field goal, Reich having successfully completed a 10-play drive. Steve Christie's 36-yarder makes it Houston 7, Buffalo 3.
With Houston leading by 4, the Bills were behind but still in good shape. As the second quarter began, Warren Moon's arm seemed to turn into a magic wand, and at the same time, the Buffalo defense began to break up. In short, the Bills went from bad to worse.
How bad could it get? There was little pressure on Warren Moon, so that he dropped back in the pocket and found his favorite targets easily. Ernest Gibbons, Haywood Jeffries, Webster Slaughter, all of them open, all of them recipients of Warren Moon's magical passes. A Houston drive that started on the 20 was headed downfield again. Chunks of yardage gobbled up by the Oilers offense. It was Moon to Webster Slaughter. 7 yards. Touchdown. The Oilers lead now 14-3. The book says to play the run and shoot, you must play 6 defensive backs and blanket the field. But the Bills' defensive blanket was torn and tattered, shredded by the quickness of the Oilers' receivers and Moon's uncanny passing touch. Up by 18 points, the Houston onslaught continued as the second quarter wound down. Trailing badly, the Bills' defense began to unravel. A costly Jeff Wright penalty on 4th down gave the Oilers a first down and renewed life. A 14-yard pickup. A pass to Haywood Jeffries huddled Houston deep in Buffalo territory. Still puzzled by the run and shoot, Buffalo's undermanned secondary allowed the Oilers into the end zone again. The Oilers' offensive attack set a dizzying pace. It was a 28-3 Houston lead. The Bills' first half offensive approach was centered around their offensive keystone, Thurman Thomas. But running with a sore hip and sprained ankles and running against an Oilers defense dedicated to stopping him, Thomas had just 26 yards. When the Bills fell behind early, Frank Reich found himself staring down a relentless Oiler pass rush. There was precious time to throw and very few receivers open to whom to throw. The passing offense took center stage as the Bills tried to mount their first half comeback. But just like the week before at the Houston Astrodome, the Bills offense was stuck in neutral.
Be honest. I'm not going to stand here and say, oh, we're going to make a big comeback.
As the clock counted down the final seconds of the first half, no doubt visions of the previous week's Bills-Oilers matchup were going through many a mind. The Bills had the ball for just 8 minutes, 48 seconds compared to 21 minutes, 12 seconds for the Oilers, and it showed. by the 28-3 score. The Bills knew they were in trouble, but as you'll see when we come back, the tables were about to turn. Did you ever wonder what it might be like to be in an NFL locker room at halftime? How about a locker room where your team trails 28-3? That's where the Bills found themselves against the Houston Oilers in the wild card game. The players collected their thoughts, the coaches came up with a plan, and it was obvious that this was going to be an emotion-filled locker room.
So we just said, let's play something that's a get after them. The one thing I did say at halftime to all of our coaches, I mentioned to Walt, we're going to go after them in terms of defense. Well, you basically play more zone against this team. We felt that we had to take big chances, even if they blew us away 56-0. I told Bruce the first time we score, we're going to kick that nursed onside kick off, whenever that might be. And I told our offensive coaches we're in 2-minute drill.
Gail Gilbert came up to me and really encouraged me, and he reminded me of it. And he said, hey, you did it before in college. He said, there's no reason we can't do it again now. And I think, you know, there's no doubt that gives you a little bit of hope.
Everybody was kind of down. Everybody was concentrating on what they had to do. You know, we knew the ball game wasn't over. We didn't know that if we were going to go out and score that many points, but we knew we wasn't going to give up.
Yeah, I turned the volume up a little bit.
What'd you say?
Oh, sure. You don't want it. I can't repeat some of that. My vocabulary is, I don't have the best in the world. Now, when it comes to, when I give those kind of talks, they...
What was the gist of it?
To get off their ass. Start playing football.
Oh, he was fired up. I'm telling you, he started off slow, but when he ended, we felt pretty low, and we deserved it.
He yelled at us. He told us, he said, hey, this is the Buffalo Bills defense I've seen play the whole year. What are you doing? I mean, you're in a position to make the plays, but you're not making them. He says, you want to get embarrassed? Or do you want to play football?
So halftime was over and the third quarter was about to begin. By this time, with a dismal score of 28-3, many Bills fans had given up hope and decided to leave, and why not? No NFL team had ever won a postseason game after trailing by more than 20 points. But all that was about to change. The Oilers had just 2 minutes to keep their confidence before their world crumbled around them.
The second half kickoff. The Bills drive start their own 36-yard line, and a sputtering Buffalo offense takes the field. Trailing by 25 points, the Bills went to their 2-minute drill and to their tried and true offensive performers like Don Beebe and running back Thurman Thomas. Third and 9 from their own 48-yard line. Frank Reich fires a pass to his tight end Pete Metzelars. But in the spirit of the day so far, it goes through his hands to Houston safety Bubba McDowell. "58 yards later, the Oilers lead it 35-3. So it was over, a 32-point lead. No team in regular or postseason had ever been able to rebound from a deficit like that. And then, little by little, strange things began to happen. Spooked by the wind, the Oilers tried a squib kickoff that squibbed right into the midsection of Bills linebacker Mark Maddox. With a drive start at midfield, Frank Reich went to work, 24 yards to tight end Pete Metzelars. Another 6-yard pickup to wide receiver Andre Reed, who had been the forgotten man up until today. Adopting his one play at a time mentality, Wright began to poke away at the Houston defense. 16 yards to wide receiver Andre Reed. Slowly, even haltingly, the Bills began to believe. Thurman Thomas was on the bench. His hip pointer had flared up again. So it was number 23, running back Kenneth Davis, maybe the best backup running back in the National Football League, who started to take the ball and the game into his hands. It was only the Bills' first touchdown. It was still a 25-point deficit. But in the stands, the true believers began once again to believe. The Bills reached into their bag of tricks on the ensuing kickoff. Not just an ordinary onside kickoff, but a middle onside kickoff. The Oilers, remarkably, were not even looking for it. Thanks to a crushing block by Mark Pike and Mark Maddox, Steve Christie recovered Buffalo ball. And once again, it would be one play at a time for the Bills quarterback, Frank Reich. While the Oilers were napping, the officials shut their eyes as well, as Don Beebe stepped out and then back inbounds to catch Reich's offering. "38 yards. Touchdown Buffalo. The margin is now 18 points. There was an eruption in the stands and on the field. And it wasn't only the offense, it was special teams and defense as well. With Bruce Smith double and triple teamed and still hobbled by rib injuries, players like Jeff Wright, Phil Hansen began to emerge. Employing their basic 3-4 defense with just 4 defensive backs, the Bills got big plays out of bigger people. And again, it was Reich, the man who engineered the Maryland Miracle of 1984, the greatest comeback in collegiate football history, now embarking on an even greater journey in the pros. The great passers of all time would have loved to have a half like this. Frank Reich's passes floating through the air to wide open targets on a perfect line. Even when there were temporary setbacks, the Bills seemed to always find the right way to do it. And then there was Andre Reed. Left out of the Buffalo offensive design in recent weeks by fate and circumstance, Reed ran pinpoint patterns out of his slot position. Taking advantage of Houston's failure to cover the dangerous slot receiver, Reed found room to roam and ramble into the end zone. The third Bills touchdown in 4.5 minutes put the Bills down by 11. The fire had been lit. The Bills and their fans were smoking. Trying to cover 4 wide receivers with 4 defensive backs is tough. Tactic that leaves little room for error. But by using a strict zone defense, the Bills were on the lookout for takeaways, like Henry Jones' pickoff, Houston's Warren Moon. There was doubt on the Houston sideline, disbelief in the rich stadium stands, and a fired-up Buffalo offense back on the field. Ken Davis was the new workhorse, pounding out yardage up the middle. And thanks to steady work in pass protection by a fired-up Buffalo offensive line, Wright continued to carve up the Oilers secondary like a New Year's hand. Make it 4 touchdowns in 8.5 minutes. A steamroller running right through Houston's heart. An operatic climax worthy of the Met. A turnaround that had them swooning on the sidelines. By surrendering 28 consecutive points, the Oilers had already fallen and were trying to get back up. But the doubts crept in. The hands got slippery, the eyes narrowed, and the collars tightened. The pressure was on Houston. At the end of the remarkable third quarter, as the fourth quarter approached, the Oilers seemed content to dodge the rest of the Buffalo Bullets and take their slim lead into the final frame.
It was sure exciting, and you know, I kept coming to the sidelines and telling them, well, we need 4, you know, need 4 more touchdowns. We need 3 more. We need 2 more, you know. It was just nice.
Overcoming great odds, the Bills did what they couldn't do in the first half of the game. Scoring 28 points within 7 minutes, they were right on the heels of the Oilers. With a score of 35-31, Bills trailing by 4, the comeback kids were still very much in this ball game. And then for the first time since the game began, they would take the lead.
The attack mode prevailed for Buffalo early in the fourth quarter. But after scoring touchdowns on 4 straight possessions, it was almost as if the Bills' offense needed a breather. Reed was the primary target, Frank Wright the trigger man. But there was also field position to consider, with Buffalo trailing 35-31. The shell-shocked Oilers collected themselves and began to make the plays that came so easily in the first half. Once again, Buffalo's linebackers were asked to drop back into zone, try to keep up with speedsters like Ernest Gibbons, and it wasn't always easy. So with Moon regaining composure, Houston got the color back in its cheeks, and the Oilers mustered enough confidence to test the Buffalo offense deep. Warren Moon decided to go way downfield, 40 yards to Haywood Jeffries, a pass broken up by Nate Odom. Another in a series of big plays made by number 37. So the chess match was on. Houston clinging to a 4-point lead. Carlton Bailey's play and interception of Warren Moon's pass looked decisive for the Bills, looked as if it would give the Bills a chance to take a lead early in the fourth quarter. It looked that way until Buffalo defensive end Bruce Smith was flagged for roughing the passer. Warren Moon and the Houston Oilers continued undaunted despite several outstanding plays by the Buffalo defense. The Oilers ran and passed their way downfield. Lorenzo White doing most of the work in the running game, and Warren Moon directing the aerial assault. After running up against a stiff Buffalo defense, the Oilers were ready for a 32-yard field goal that would have given them a 7-point lead. The right thing at the right time in the right place. A Buffalo drive start from the 26 that began with Kenneth Davis getting the ball. And and a tipped pass that could have gone long. And the right call on 3rd and 4. Davis again, crossing up Houston on a counter to the right side. And instead of 4 yards to get the first down, it was 35 yards, and the Bills firmly in Houston territory. Frank Reich had the reins of the Buffalo offense in his teeth now. 6 guns blazing from both hands. Finally, on 1st and 10 at the Houston 17, the Bills scaled the mountain to take the lead for the first time. Minutes left in the 4th quarter. The Oilers still had a pulse. Starting from their own 28-yard line, they had 3 timeouts and 3 points to make up. The man who hung the moon in the first half had some magic left in his arm. After a couple of tries into the end zone for the win, Houston had to finally settle for the tie and likely overtime. Al Del Greco came in to hit a 26-yard field goal with 12 seconds left, and the wildest of wild card games was still not decided.
Well, the Oilers did what every Bills fan was hoping they wouldn't do, send the game into overtime. Tied at 38-38, it was now anyone's game, and the winner would be one step closer to the Super Bowl. The Bills had come a long way, too far, in fact, to lose this game. Once again, the coin was brought out. The hearts of Bills fans sank when Houston won the toss and elected to receive. The coin toss is a stroke of luck, but Houston was about to find out their luck had run out.
The Bills were forced to kick off to start the sudden death, and Houston decided to play Russian roulette with 3 straight passes to start its series. The chamber was full on the 3rd try. Buffalo's Nate Odoms with the back-breaking interception on the 3rd play of the overtime. The game was Buffalo's to lose. An impossible dream was unfolding. A drive that started at the Houston 20-yard line. It was Kenneth Davis right and Kenneth Davis right again. And it was enough for kicker Steve Christie. The Bills looking for the 32-yard field goal to complete the miracle at Rich.
It'll be 32 yards, center of the field, right to hold. Snap is back and down, kick is up on the way, and the kick is good. And the Buffalo Bills have advanced to the second round of the AFC playoffs with a stunning come-from-behind victory over the Houston Oilers, 41-38.
You got a 12th man in a crowd like we have here, and you make the plays like that, you know, you got an extra man behind you.
The overtime lasted a little over 3 minutes. The Bills wrote their own page in the NFL history books. More on that when we come back.
Snap is backing down. Kick is up on the way. And the kick is good. And the Buffalo Bills have advanced to the second round of the AFC playoffs.
What happened at Rich Stadium is rare. In fact, the Bills-Oilers game broke a record set in 1980 when the San Francisco 49ers overcame a 28-point deficit to beat the New Orleans Saints. But this is a game that captured the imagination of a nation, a game that will go down in the annals of sports history, along with Joe Namath's Jets win in Super Bowl III, Don Larson's perfect game in the '56 World Series, and the 1980 Miracle on Ice at Lake Placid. And it happened without some of the names we have come to depend on this season, not Kelly, not Thomas, not Bennett, but second-string quarterback Frank Reich, backup running back Kenny Davis, this season's often forgotten receiver Andre Reed, and workhorse defenders Phil Hansen and Darryl Talley. It was the entire team and the 12th man who made believers of us all. It was the miracle at Rich, the stuff that legends are made of. I'm John Murphy. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Film footage provided by NFL Films.
Bill himself, half foot high.